Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest in this series of podcasts, Health for Your Wealth, with myself, Liam Carroll of SYS Wealth and Financial Planners. And the idea behind these podcasts is to interview experienced professionals with vast experience who will give health to your wealth. So, delighted today to be joined by Michelle O'Connor. And Michelle, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
No problem, Liam. Thanks for having me.
And Michelle has just give a brief background on her. Michelle has a primary degree in social studies and a master's by research in social science. And her main areas of experience and work is in the area of mental health, and this area is a huge passion of Michelle's. And she believes in each person she works with and strives to be the best professional possible, providing flexible, non-judgmental and personalised support. Currently works with Employability Limerick, providing a new model of supported employment, which is research-based, called IPS, which is Individualised Placement Support, specialising in supporting people with mental health difficulties in returning to work, and have been going from strength to strength in the Limerick community. Michelle, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
No problem, Liam. Thanks.
First question I ask everybody is the last 12, 14, 16, 18 months, how have you been affected by COVID on both a personal and professional level?
Well, it's definitely.
Where do we start?
I think personally, it's been really challenging with trying to not only mind yourself, but people around you who might be vulnerable. So I think we definitely have all had those moments of worry when we've maybe kind of called over to mum or dad's and got a little bit too close. And I think I've been definitely naive that, I'll be fine, but I might affect someone else if I was asymptomatic. So I think that worry's kind of been very constant, and it's definitely a huge impact that is kind of there all the time. Professionally, I think no face-to-face, getting used to the Zoom. Now it's great, but I'm definitely, for anyone who knows me, an extrovert. I love meeting people. I love meeting face-to-face. Yeah. So I think the lack of being able to do that has been really, really challenging. But it's shown how resilient we are. Like, there's so many people who have adapted to it, myself included, and just had to kind of go with it. So I'm still looking forward to meeting yourself and anyone else for a cup of coffee when we can.
I think it's amazing. Like, we're like a microcosm of the whole thing, Michelle. We'd met very regularly at Midwest mentoring meetings and other bits and pieces, and probably haven't met in 18 months, like, and it's just, I suppose, a microcosm of how things have gone, isn't it, overall with people? Isn't that true?
It really, really is. Yeah, it definitely is. And you'd miss those kind of that structure of meeting like face to face and kind of having the coffee afterwards and the chats. Because now when you do have meetings, they feel like they're very structured and you have to have an agenda. Whereas before you could develop a lot more kind of natural rapport with people. But again, hopefully we're kind of coming out the other side so we can go back to that level of normality we're all looking for.
And I suppose from a professional vantage point, you'd be using Microsoft Teams and Zoom and so on and so forth now. And you wouldn't have used that before either, Michelle, you wouldn't?
We wouldn't have massively, no, to be honest. Like all training, meetings, all of that would have been face-to-face. So it was really an adjustment for us as well. But it has made things a lot easier in terms of kind of meeting people who usually would have to travel to meet us. Like, we're kind of Limerick City and county based, so everything's really accessible for our team. But that's not to say for an employer like yourself, it's probably a lot easier to at times do meetings over Zoom. So I definitely think we'll keep that element just to make it a little bit more accessible for everyone and for clients as well. Some of our clients might have travel issues or accessibility issues. So some people will want to keep that kind of hybrid approach, which I think is good also.
Yeah. Employability Limerick, you're the gang inside there. You're fantastic at what you do. You're all very personable, no more so than yourself. And I suppose you're dealing an awful lot of people in the workplace and things like that. But what nuggets of information, Michelle, would you have for people on the way out of COVID and that they can use going into the future?
I think kind of coming out of COVID particularly, the most, because when you sent me these questions, I really had a good think about what would be the most important things to kind of get across today. And the biggest thing is really just to not only believe in yourself that like anyone can go back to work at any time, regardless of the circumstance or the change in industry. I think a lot of people are looking now at changing industries, and there's definitely a huge openness in the employment space for that. So I definitely think having that belief in yourself that regardless of your past or your work history or education, employers are very open to people who have the passion and the want to learn. And I really think that's sometimes not understood by people. They think you have to have the degree or you have to have the experience, whereas a lot of employers I deal with, they just want the right person who will stay with the company, excel, will learn. So I really think believing in yourself in that aspect of things. But even like small things like picking up the phone, like we've definitely seen over COVID, it's been a very challenging environment applying online because there's been such a high level of competition for posts. Whereas we've had such success when someone picks up the phone and rings an employer and says, "Hi, my name is, I'm really interested. This is why I'm interested. I will of course send the CV through the normal route, but I just wanted to introduce myself." And that can really, really set you aside from other candidates who are just kind of applying online. So it's making yourself stand out, and as well, kind of putting the value on your personality and what you can attribute to a team versus just your skill set, because employers really value the team dynamic a lot as well. So yeah, and body language, if you're having a Zoom interview, I think it's much more challenging to come across well, and it's kind of really focusing back on the essentials of, you know, smiling, having positive body language. So yeah, that's, and fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. That's the most important one. You know, you just kind of believe in yourself and then worry about the rest afterwards.
It'll all come good, as they say. It'll all come good.
That's it. Yeah.
Perfect. And just, I suppose, using your background and you're very experienced in your field, but any areas that you feel are totally like a little tip, I suppose, that somebody mightn't be aware of that you feel that people could utilize, Michelle? Yeah,
I think there's definitely a lack of kind of understanding and kind of knowledge of the service that are available locally. So like sometimes people are fearful to return to work if they're on long-term illness payments, and there is a huge fear factor with, I can't even ring, or I don't want to kind of highlight my name in case, you know, my book is stopped. So I think there is a huge wealth of resources available, our service included, but even like that, the INOU, which is the Irish National Organisation for the Unemployed, they're a confidential service that you can call, tell them your circumstance, your financial situation, and they can give you that really experienced welfare support. So I definitely think we've seen now sometimes the dependence on kind of social welfare like that during even the pandemic, and there's a fear when you're changing financial situation, and I think it's really good to get as much information as you can for your own financial situation from someone extremely experienced in that area. There's also a lot of training grants available through the Department of Social Protection that are available for certain payment types also. So I definitely think it's good to contact a case officer in the Department of Social Protection and see what training grants am I eligible for, because a lot of people, as I mentioned, are looking to retrain and upskill, and you don't have to bear the cost of that yourself. So I think, listen, reaching out to services that are available locally, because there's so many times I meet with people and they just don't know what's available to them to ask for these questions. So I definitely think pick up the phone, whether it's yourselves, the department, anyone that they think could give them that kind of direction. And it's the same for employers. There's a lot of grants and subsidies available for employers, whether that's for disability confidence training, for workplace adaptation grants. There really is a lot available. So I think it's good to start asking those questions.
Yeah, I was talking to, as you know, Adrian Carmody, I believe, is one of your champion employers, and he sings the praises of the services that yourself and Ursula and Patricia, the team, that you all provide, like, and it's fantastic, and he uses it, I think, on an ongoing basis, and he swears by it, like, so it's great to have people like that will endorse your services, isn't it?
It really is, and I think like we've such good support from a lot of employers locally, and it really it's such a, we really value that, and I think there's such an important thing for us to communicate to employers who haven't yet engaged with us but may be thinking about it, is really that we can sometimes just help on an informal basis, or a question you might have. It doesn't always have to be, I have a vacancy that I want to fill. It can be very much, just wanted to see what you do you know about this, and that relationship then can be built over the years depending on what the company needs. So we're definitely very flexible and provides that individualized support to an employer as well.
Again, you're fantastic at what you do and all that, but just what would be the biggest barrier for an employer to go to eat, basically, with a position available, would you find, Michelle?
I think sometimes the barrier can be the fear of the unknown. So if you haven't used our service before, you may be just a little bit fearful of, what if it doesn't work out? What if I interview the candidate and it's not the right candidate for me? So I think there's definitely that, and as well just a fear of hire, like what does it mean if I hire someone with a disability or with a mental health difficulty? What type of support do I need to provide as an employer? And we're really there to advise and guide through the whole process. So it's not just here's a CV, meet the candidate. If you do offer the candidate a job, we're still there afterwards to make sure that that placement goes well. So it's definitely, we're there as long as needed in that sense. And I think that's what really sets us apart, that we're there for that aftercare as well. So it's definitely the fear of the unknown, and as well at times it can be a fear of asking questions in the right way. So sometimes someone's afraid, oh, is this politically correct, or can I ask this question, or am I phrasing it correctly? And we definitely have an ethos in Employability Limerick that not asking the question is worse than asking the question with a really good intention but just phrasing it wrong. And we'll always gently say, oh, this is a better way to phrase it if it is kind of incorrect, but it's definitely always done with a kind of an open, safe space where you can have that kind of confidential conversation with us.
No, that's very interesting. And I know from speaking to Adrian and one or two others that have used the services, like your backup service is massive altogether. Like, so, I mean, if somebody does employ somebody, and if it's not, like, even insurance made to start, if it's not the right person, the right fit, you'll sort it out from there anyway, won't you, Michelle?
Yeah, and like it has to fit for the company. At the end of the day, we focus on the ability of the person to do the job. So if they aren't suitable for that job based on the company needs, then that's fine. And it's great because the client still gets a lot from going for an interview, getting that feedback. So there's still a huge amount gained even from getting to the interview stage. So it has to fit for the company, and we're very business minded in that sense. And that is because we're so embedded in the business community. So while we work with our clients and we really work for our clients, we're very aware of what the business is needed in the business community, what is needed to run a company essentially. So we definitely have that balance, I think, for both.
And as well as that, then I see Optima Training with Adrian, like they've got fantastic publicity over using your services and things like that, and it has been very beneficial from that point of view. So any company that gets sets up, am I correct in saying this, sets up a partnership with yourselves like that, there's huge benefit from a publicity point of view as well, isn't that fair to say?
There is, yeah. And I think, listen, thankfully a lot of companies now are really addressing, their equality and diversity, their disability confidence, and we really assist a company with how to make that happen in a very, very measurable and kind of give the steps to do that, because sometimes someone doesn't know where to start with taking any of those steps to make their company more equal, really. So I think once we do start working with a company like you mentioned with Optima Training, we really do our best as well to advertise it like they're really kind of taking these actual steps in becoming a very inclusive employer. And like we have a quarterly newsletter now that we send out to the business community, and we regularly highlight companies that they work with us and how they work with us, and why that's a really, really kind of good company to work with if you're looking like that for training or anything else. So we definitely try and give back to the companies who give so much to us. So we always say if there's any company who want to reach out, we're always open to conversations and how we can partner and work together.
No, that's fantastic. And I think the publicity that people get, like, it can't be underestimated, because you get the feel good factor from the corporate and social responsibility and things like that. Like, that's massive.
Exactly. And customers really care now about the ethos of an organization, and they really look into what is your stance on kind of equality and diversity, accessibility, what's your kind of disability representative within the company. Like, customers are really valuing that, and thankfully they are, because it's so important that companies are looking at this side of their business. But it can be, and I totally understand that it can be a scary place to start, because you kind of thinking, where do I even go with this? So we can really move at the pace of the organization and guide as much as we can.
I was talking to someone who used your services, and I won't mention the name, but they said to me that they got a person employed from yourselves, and that person was actually superior at the job than someone that they had there already, and it was subsidized as well. Like, so, I mean, it can happen that way as well, can't it? That the person has a point to prove nearly, hasn't it?
Yeah, they can really excel. And like a lot of the clients we work with, because they've been out of work, when they are given an opportunity, they really do their very, very best that they can. They stay with the company a lot longer because they have been given that opportunity to re-enter the employment space. So there's a huge amount of benefits. We see reduced turnover. We see kind of a great staff morale with the existing team. So it really, really has a huge amount of benefits for the employer and for the client.
Yeah, no, that's hugely important. Yeah, it's fantastic. Michelle, financial services, as you know, is what we're involved in. And in your experience over the years, what product would you say, or service would you advise people to take out, or has provided you with the most benefit, Michelle?
I think so. Thankfully, I have Julium to guide me and advise me, because we all have our strengths, but financial planning isn't really mine. And similarly, it's always good to reach out to someone in your network who has that expertise. So I'm lucky to have you breaking it down and making it really simple for me. So I recently took out an income protection policy, and that was really important to me because someone within your company had phrased to me, you know, why do we not insure our main source of income? And that really made sense to me. Whereas before, even the names of the policies didn't make sense to me. I just looked at it nearly like a different language. Whereas I really think SYS break it down to like the normal everyday language. And when kind of someone said to me, you're insuring your wages, I just thought like that's the policy for me. Yeah. So I took that policy out, and I feel really good that I have, because COVID has taught us we never know what's around the corner. We're not as in control of our lives as we think we are. So I think that's the main kind of policy that I would recommend for anyone, really.
Yeah. Michelle is a proud Limerick girl, city girl, and moved to the country. So the word is adapting. She's willing to adapt to other circumstances anyway. So that's a big skill anyway, Michelle, isn't it?
It is. I'll always say I'm from
for you.
Yeah.
You'll always be Limerick City.
Yeah.
Last question, and you're out of trouble then, Michelle. Last question. Okay. The best bit of advice you ever got, be it from a parent, sibling, work colleague, lecturer, etc. What would be the best bit of advice that you ever got?
I think one that I mentioned earlier was one my mother has given me and I always use, which is fake it till you make it, because I think we all have a bit of imposter syndrome where we think other people know what they're doing and we don't, whereas we all are kind of winging it. So in every aspect of life, I think we always feel like, oh, I'm not the one that's ready. So I think just kind of faking it till you make it is one of the really, really good ones. And the other one that I really like is that no one's really looking at you as much as you think they are. So I know sometimes we can be really self-conscious or being like, oh, what will so-and-so think? Or, but I think, you know, that no one's really as worried about what you're doing as you are. So just do what you really want to do, I think.
Fantastic. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time. I really enjoyed that now. Thank you very much. Employability Limerick provide a fantastic service for employers, potential employees with disability, and when we're getting in contact with Michelle, we have Michelle's contact details at the end of the podcast here. So if you know anybody in that situation, or if you're in a situation yourself where you're looking to employ people, it's a fantastic way to go about it, and you couldn't meet people more helpful than the team inside Employability anyway. Michelle, thanks again for taking the time to join us, and thank you for listening, and until the next time, stay safe. Thank you.